Hello, Craig. I'm very honored to have you here during this episode with regarding to creating branded visual content. But it's a bizarre subject, so I think people need to find out what we're going to talk about. It will be about social artwork solutions and how it can help people and entrepreneurs, in fact, to do their social branding.
Well, thanks for having me today, Johan. I really appreciate it.
Well, perhaps you can tell us how you started to do the things that you do today. In fact, with
Sure.
regarding to social branding and more specifically about social artwork solutions. And perhaps you can give also a little bit an insight about the landscape. So just to have an
Sure.
idea.
Well, there's for some context. I mean, I think there's nobody that's going to disagree that visual content is in its renaissance period right now. It's exploding everywhere. Places, social media networks like Instagram and Pinterest that I think a lot of people don't necessarily initially think of social networks are all based on images. So, and Instagram, I think just this past week has surpassed all other social media platforms as the largest platform, against Facebook and Twitter, and as in terms of the number of active users engaging with each other. So I think that really goes without saying that images, video, streaming video, is really, it's not really a choice anymore for businesses or personal brands. You really, if you want to keep up with the attention that other people are getting and the engagement that other people are getting, text is not dead, don't get me wrong, but the old adage of a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can communicate so much more in an image than you can with text. And I think that we're really getting into a point where this is kind of a must-have for anybody that is running a business or trying to build a personal brand.
Yes, I can understand, but there are a lot of graphical tools, I guess, and you also have built a kind of tool. Perhaps you need to explain first what the tool is about.
Sure, and to kind of put this into context of how this came to be, I was running a podcast and actually creating graphics for that. I've been in Photoshop since the first version of it, which it's gone through like 30 different versions. I used to be a 3D animator as well. So I'm no stranger to creating graphics. And what I found was that when I made the shift from doing, I was a photographer for 7 years before this. When I made the shift from, photography to trying to become an entrepreneur and building a startup company, that was the next stage that I wanted to find in my life and to scale beyond what I could do personally, as well as help other people. I had run a podcast, I was interviewing entrepreneurs, and through that, I was creating these graphics, and I was part of a podcast community where a lot of people would ask me, what do you think about, I would say they asked the community, what do you think about this podcast cover art? How can I improve? How can I stand out in iTunes? And that's a very specific niche in terms of podcasting versus business. But to be honest with you, it was a question that I saw in every group that I was in. And anybody that's in these groups, I would say that 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10 posts are, do you like A, B, C, or D? Which of these graphics do you like? How can I improve them? What do you think of my messaging? How are you reacting to this? And what I found in that was that this was a huge pain point that everybody was having, and everybody wanted to, create these graphics, but they really didn't know how to. They didn't want to learn Photoshop. And as you had mentioned, there's a lot of really great tools that have come out, both for mobile and for desktop, that are helping people create these graphics without the complication of, learning a really intense program. So there was a point where I said to myself, how could I build a tool, and how would I build it? And how would it be different? And from that, I actually created a tool called Relay, which I am trying to automate. I use that term lightly because anytime you try and automate art, it's, it's not going to go perfect. but I'm trying to indicate and fine tune the things that Relay does that no other tool does. And we can get into that a little bit later as well. But that's kind of how the product was born. I've been working on it for about 6 to 8 months now. I had a desktop version, and now I have a fully responsive a web-based app, and we are looking into building out a mobile app as well.
Whoa, you're working very hard.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. Yesterday, I think I clocked like 18 hours, and I was just like, wow. I get up at 6:30, and it's the life of the entrepreneur, right? And people that are solopreneurs as well. It is really, it's a challenging thing, and it's hard work, but I'm hoping that the rewards will be worth it in the end.
Well, I've got to tell, I've played with the solution with Relay. Even the Twitter card, I made it with Relay, so it's a great product. But just to tell you how I experienced it, I remember that I had to do with MailChimp, I had to send out mailings, and I had to make a banner art, and I did that with Photoshop. And I worked with slices, and I exported that, and then I had to recondition the images to make the cards for it, and Twitter cards for it, and Facebook banners, and Facebook cards, and Google Plus cards. And it was just incredible how much time I wasted by doing that. And when I did with Relay, when I made it, I was astonished, because I simply had to drag the logo, I had to drag the imagery and the banner, and so I had to type some text and decide about the formatting. But then when I went to the all section, I saw all the imagery ready for Facebook, for Twitter, even for Pinterest. I was really, really impressed by the product and how easy it was to use, in fact.
Well, I really appreciate that. There's, probably the first question out of people's mouths, not to lead the question, but it's usually, how does this differ from Canva, PicMonkey, WordSwag? There's a lot of tools out there that a lot of people know about, and they really want to know, how does Relay different? The biggest thing is something that you mentioned, and to me, I wanted to take it a step further than what those tools do. I didn't want people to have to think about, how do I, what layer is this on? And is it in front of or in back of this layer? Or do I want to left or right justify this? Or, how do I want to bring in this image and pull it around and fit it and things like that? So the best analogy that I've come up with is kind of like if you go bowling and you put the bumpers in the gutters, it kind of keeps all the content automatically in a bounding box. And not even Photoshop does that. So when I first created this tool, that was the very first thing I wanted to do, was I wanted it to take the text and automatically fit it in a box. I wanted to take the images and automatically fit in a box. What I found is, even though there's some great tools out there, a lot of people are spending hours tweaking something, and they don't need to tweak it. They don't need to perfect social media graphics. You can create some really great graphics in, Photoshop, but who has time to spend an hour on a graphic? And, unless you're repurposing content, or if you have a huge following that's going to engage in that graphic, chances are the first few graphics that you do are either going to be different than what your brand will be eventually, or they're going to just float by the feed, and, only a few people are going to see them. So for me, Relay focuses all on productivity and ease of use. And as you said, it is as easy as dragging a photo in and dropping it. So if you can drag a image in and drop it into a folder, and if you can type, you can create graphics. And I wanted it to be that easy for people.
Well, when you look at the easy, it is, I guess, but how do you see it compared to the other products then, when you talk about Canva or PicMonkey? What is really the unique selling point of that product, of Relay?
I would say that the ease of use is, one of the features. And just to go down a bullet list of a couple other features real quick, you can actually type in words that you want to rank for in Google image search. And so you could type in 30 words, and every time that Relay spits out an image, every time you publish something, it actually creates those tag names on your images so that you can rank in Google image search. That's important because it's something that I've manually done. And if you want traffic to what you're doing, especially if you have a blog and you're loading up graphics to that, having those key terms that are searchable can definitely bring traffic. And I have several people that are using Relay and ranking really well for their niche.
Do I understand you well? Are you referring to SEO or?
Yes. Yes, for the search, it adds search engine optimization on the images basically. But the end result is that you get, ranked for those images and you get more traffic. You had mentioned socially Nina, who I love. She actually has been telling me to talk less about the features and more about the benefits. So basically, if you want a lot of traffic, use Relay and it will automate the process. The second thing that I think that Relay does is what you had mentioned before about having the graphics ready for social media. Now, Canva has released something called Magic Resize, which I believe does this as well for their work version. However, the way that Relay is different is that you don't have to tweak things after it creates the resized graphic. I believe that Canva does its best guess, and I haven't used it a lot yet, but does its best guess to fit everything together. But the problem is if you have something that's near the edge and you go from a square graphic to a wide graphic or vice versa, I believe it's not going to perfectly fit it in there. I'm not sure yet. But with Relay, actually, we have this icon that you click on it, and everything is already set where it needs to be. So it doesn't really guess, it just does it correctly. And if you want a different layout, you simply go through and pick a different layout. But the number one thing that no other, although I think most of those features no other tool does, but the most immediate thing that you'll notice if you get into Relay is that once you create or change a logo, all the other graphics change with that and follow it and mirror it. So the reason that that's really powerful is if you have a website, instead of retyping your website every time for every graphic, you simply add it once to the Relay platform, and it actually propagates all those out to every graphic. If you change something, it also changes with those graphics as well. So it's very powerful and can help you get 90% of the graphic done immediately. And I'm kind of developing this phrase, you can literally create 200 graphics in under a minute. And then you go through and you tweak a couple things on each of those graphics. If you want your logo to show up on your Twitter graphic, but you don't want that logo to show up on the exact same Twitter graphic in a square format for Facebook, you simply turn it off. So there's no layers, there's no mess you really can't mess it up. That's I think the coolest thing is for non-designers and people that don't want to learn how to design. I think that's the biggest distinction between some of the other tools.
Well, when I understand you well, the keywording thing is really awesome. Does it work with the meta tag or meta keywords?
We're looking into that right now. We have a list of about you had mentioned Trello before we got on the call. We have a Trello board, and we have pretty much our whole roadmap out for the next month or so, maybe even 2 months. And we have so many features we're adding into Relay, including shareable graphics. So why download your graphic and put them on all these different platforms when you could simply click a button? The other thing we're going to be adding very soon is bulk processing. Why create 100 quote graphics? Or if you're an author, why create 100 different excerpt? If you're doing I'll give you an example. If you've published a book and you're on a book promo tour and you want to pull out, let's say 50 quotes, imagine going into Relay and actually picking a layout, uploading a list of all your different 50 quotes, clicking a button, and having those 50 images delivered to you immediately. So a lot of the features that we're picking up are a little bit more complicated. So we've kind of focused on the ones that are adding the most value to the paying members. And then we're going to create the bigger ones that people are going to be like, wow, how does, like, I think what's going to happen is people are going to say, how does XYZ app compare to Relay, instead of the other way around, once they get to know it. And I see that Knee Guru was in there, and he said that he was asking, we did just add that, Knee Guru. I'm not sure what your name is, but we did just add that archive feature. There's two things we just added a couple days ago. One is archive, and what that allows you to do is actually go in to your old photos and edit them. And the other one that we're going to be adding here in the next few days, actually there's two. I feel like the features are fast and furious right now. There's two, actually. We're going to be adding recall. We're calling it recall.
Yes.
You can click a button. Imagine having an image and being able to recall all those assets back to those 200 graphics. I think that's going to be really awesome, because if you have a client that you're working on, and you have that graphic, and then they come back a couple days later and say, I want to change that, and I also need to create the Pinterest image. Imagine being able to recall all those assets for everything. Oh. The other one that we're really excited about is themes. We're going to be launching that probably in the next day or two. Themes, you can actually imagine for Halloween or a holiday, or like, if you wanted to have like a, let's say a summer type photo, you can click on a theme, and what it'll do is it'll create all of the colors and the fonts, and it'll give you kind of like a theme that goes over all of Relay. So at the click of one button, you can have 200 graphics that have that color scheme for spring, or that color scheme for Halloween, so I'm really excited about all these features, which is why I'm kind of like just firing them off. But I think there's like 10 things that Relay does that other tools don't, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm thinking about people who are making a kind of tent pole calendar, where they're putting all the big events of the year, like Halloween, like New Year, like St. Valentine, and that you actually could, in function of that, take advantage of that beams feature that you mentioned earlier before.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me perhaps what is the real audience that's suitable for your product? Which kind of audience are you aiming for? Which kind of people who would need this product?
We've been working on that, and I've been working on our brand story and really thinking a lot about who this best helps. I think this tool was born out of helping podcasters to start with. I think that episode art and show notes for podcasters, podcasting is really big right now. I think that's one market that could really use this. I think that it's definitely a B2B tool. It's not really a B2C tool. And the two words that I've come really clear on for Relay is productivity and results in conversion. I don't really want to create an app that just makes fun quotes. While Relay does memes and fun quotes, and I just added a birthday card template to it today, while it does some of those more fun things, I really think this is about, creating graphics that get more traffic and spread your message, and also unifying your brand. So it's not just for inspirational quotes, which I think they still like, but they're getting a little tired of seeing an entire feed with inspirational quotes. So I'm trying to create graphics that allow people to say, for example, like, let's say I want to say a chef, they would say, do you like steak or bacon? And they put those two photos up, and then they get a lot of engagement from that on their page. So it's not just about inspirational type text. I think the best people that Relay is for is anyone that has text that they want to convert to graphics quickly, and they want traffic. They want to spread their message, and they want to do it in a way that is not like the other million people using these other apps. Relay is a very lean startup right now, so you're going to have layouts that nobody else has seen. I have, and I think that's the power. Like if layouts are a feature of Relay, I think because there's a part in there where you have screens. If you want a picture of a photo, inside an iPhone, you simply drag and drop that photo and it fits into the iPhone. So I think those are some other things that we're really excited about that differentiates Relay.
Well, impressive. This product is really going hard, and I'm glad to hear that. So suppose that someone needs to work with imagery. What would be the order to start with? Relay. Should I start with Big Monkey? Should I start with Photoshop, or how you see that? In fact,
I think I am not real. I don't feel like I'm in competition with these tools per se. I think that people should use what they like, and I think that you should pair that with what your audience wants. If you think that your audience is 80% on Instagram, don't go in and start creating graphics and all this different stuff. If they respond mostly to behind the scenes images of your brand without any text on it, just go out with your phone and take pictures and fill up that Instagram feed and convert them through, helpful tips or behind the scenes, text, like here's what we're doing, and I think that that's the thing that people miss a lot. They think that they need to be creating graphics, and well, I want to put it this way. Creating graphics is kind of like a no-brainer if you really want to engage people and stand out in a news feed. But I think that a lot of people don't ask why. Like, why am I creating all these graphics? And I think the answer is, like, find out what your audience wants. If your audience eats up inspirational quotes every morning about yoga and they love that, then go for that. If they want tips, then focus on tips. If they want a daily quote or a daily insight or something like that, or if they love your books and things like that, focus on that. And then I think that's the most important part before choosing what platform you want. Then go in and try some of the different tools. When I first started this, I was like, how am I going to create an app that will compete with these other 40 apps out there? And what I found after asking people is that 50% of the people that I asked loved an app, and 50% of the people that hated that same app for whatever reason. So I would say find the platform that is easiest and quickest for you to use or gets the results that you want. If you want to create really deep graphics and get Photoshop, you might want to try Pixlr or, Photoshop Elements. There is no right or wrong. I think it all comes down to, what does your audience want? What do they react to? And what can you do? What kind of graphic program are you comfortable with, or that you want to outsource it to?
Well, I got to admit, for me, it's also important to get things done. So I got also a lot of time pressure. And when I have a tool which helps me to generate the imagery in a kind of automated way, where you have everything according to specific topics or specific social media platforms, and where you can indicate what you like, what your favorites are, and you have it to have it immediately after dragging the imagery and the artwork and the text. For me, that's more than awesome. In fact,
to be honest with you, Johan, I think the problem is that a lot of tools, and I'm not saying they're doing it wrong, but for their audience and their clients, they want to give them as many options as possible, okay? And what happens is, if you give someone a set of 20 different filters, and then you can add all this different stuff, and then you can, I'm trying to think of other examples, but when you give someone 500 options, they're going to go in there and tweak forever, So Relay is a little bit more focused, I think, on someone's brand in the photos. And I think the other thing too that I've really noticed, you were asking who's this before, I actually feel like a lot of people react to putting quotes with headshots of people. So a lot of the layouts in Relay are focused on dragging in a headshot of your peer, of your peers and the people that you network with and the people that you want to lift up. I mean, kind of go back to the author, I think that if you're a book publisher and you have 20 different authors, and people know those authors' faces, I think a lot of people focus on these quotes and they don't actually put in the photos of the headshots. The reason I think that is because there's no tool out there that has focused templates on that. All the ones that I've seen are about flat design, and they don't really feature any photos. So when you go into Relay, there's like, probably 50% of them you can add a headshot into it, or add a quote, or split it on the side. And I personally feel like that's the next level of visual graphics, is lifting up your peers. If you hear something on Blab, or if you hear something on Periscope, I actually have streaming templates in there. I think I'm the first person that's created streaming templates that are specifically for Blab and Periscope and Meerkat. So I think that I'm kind of ahead of the curve, if you will, not patting myself on the back, but I think that's another thing that's really different than Relay, is I focus on layouts that the community wants versus the layouts that I think designers want.
Well, I need to thank you for this tour about social imagery and branding. Is there one last takeaway that you would give us for people, or a tip that you say, okay, this is something that I would like to notify people when they start off?
I think that I would go back to what I was talking about before, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I think entrepreneurs, startups, solopreneurs, like I go to a lot of these craft fairs where people are selling candles and they have their nice looking brand, or they're selling, handmade cloths, or, there's people out there that promote things on Etsy, and you can be really popular with a lot of those things. And I think what happens is people hear, oh, I have to do Facebook ads, or I have to start creating Twitter lists, or I have to start creating this stuff. And I'm not here to tell anyone you have to create graphics, if that's not if your audience doesn't, focus on that. Mm-hmm. I think that the best question that anybody starting a business can ask is go into their community and see what they react, and keep track, and whether that's surveys or whatever, go in and see what they're reacting to and ask them what they want to see, versus making an assumption of where you need to be. If your audience doesn't react to Facebook ads, don't go out and buy a Facebook ad course if you're not going to spend the money on it. If you don't have time to, create a Facebook group and manage it, don't create a Facebook group. I think that all of those things can be massively helpful for a business. But I think the biggest question that people miss is, why am I here? And, is my audience reacting to this? And I'm guilty of that too. I've tried many things just by, trying things and seeing what failed. So that's kind of like my number one quote that I could give out to solopreneurs, small businesses, everybody in that space right now.
Okay. I would like to thank you for taking here the stand and discuss with us the branded visual content, and more specifically, the Relay solution. So see you next.
I appreciate it. It was awesome meeting you and chatting with you.